Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Nintendo Insider podcast. Joining me today is Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Sup?
And Darren. Hello, Darren.
Hello.
How are you both doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Living a dream.
Have you had a good 2 weeks of gaming?
Yeah, it's been quite exhausting. I've been doing quite a lot of it, to be honest with you. I'm ready for a nap.
You and me
both.
both.
No rest for the wicked. Talking of wicked things, you've both been playing Bayonetta.
Yep.
That is right.
How has that been going?
Excellent. Well, I've been playing the first one, so I'll start if you like. The last time I played the first Bayonetta was when it came out on the Xbox 360. So it was a long time ago, and I loved it, and I thought it was amazing, but I couldn't stand the story. The story drove me insane. But what I realised when I've been playing it recently, I've changed it to the Japanese language. I don't know if you could do that on the 360 or not. And it's like a different game. The what's it called? The story just flows a lot better. It just seems to gel so much more, and the voice acting, because it's Japanese, you can't tell if it's good acting or not. It just seems to be just seems to work really well.
I always think that the Japanese voice actors are a bit more. They get into it a lot more, I think, than English voice actors.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that when it comes to anime and stuff, I think most people rather watch the subtitles as opposed to listening to the dubbed. I used to be obsessed with martial art films when I was younger, Jet Li and Jackie Chan. I hated it when it was dubbed. They used to cut stuff out as well.
And then Rush Hour happened.
Yeah, that's it. Well, a good example is that with Shaolin Soccer. I don't know if you've ever watched Shaolin Soccer. It's probably on Netflix, but there was two versions of that. There's a dubbed version and a subtitled version, and the subtitled version was uncut. And I mean, it's not like it's a kid-friendly film, but they changed the cut sections out of it to cater for the dubbed crowd, so it became the lesser film. But like I say, with Bayonetta, playing it in a Japanese language, it just seems more stylish as opposed to more like it's a fairly flamboyant game anyway. There's some crazy stuff happening in it. It's all flowers and like Bayonetta is like a strong kind of confident woman, isn't she? I mean, everyone knows she's really sexy and stuff, but she plays centerfold, doesn't she? She's in charge. She's the lead. But in the English one, I think because of how corny everyone sounds in it, it's quite difficult to kind of get invested into. Well, if you play it through Japanese, it just seems to seem a lot more stylish as opposed to kind of Power Rangers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's really good. But
yeah, I've got the what's it called? Non-stop Climax Edition. I got that pre-ordered, so that's going to arrive on Friday. It's coming out, isn't it? So
yeah, I don't think they call that. They called it the Climax Edition here. That's only in Japan.
Oh, damn it!
I think it's just called Special Edition here, which seems really lame in comparison. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh well.
That just drives the stereotype of the English too far.
We're too sensitive to these things.
I know. Yeah, we should have the non-stop Climate Edition. I think it suits it perfectly.
Have you been playing it more on the TV or handheld mode?
Well, I've been playing it mainly in handheld mode. For the first half of it, I didn't realise that the speaker on the Switch was on surround sound. So when I docked it to my TV, there were certain sound effects that were missing. So I thought there was something wrong with it. I even filmed it and I sent it to you. I pulled the Switch out and saying, "Look, you can hear it going, yeah, yeah, yeah," and then you put it back on the TV and you can't hear it.
I was a bit worried.
Yeah, I was. And then I'd done a bit of research on it, and it was just me having it on surround sound and not on stereo. It worked fine after that. But yeah, it looks pretty much exactly the same both on the TV and on dock. So because it's not a high resolution on the telly, it's not like it runs at 1080p on the telly, but it still looks good on both screens.
Well, I guess a question for both of you though. I mean, in terms of handheld, do you find the sticks on the Joy-Con are durable enough to be playing a game like Bayonetta? Because it's quite not button mashy, but you're slamming buttons quite more than most games.
I think it's totally doable. You can totally play the game. I've had no issue playing through. Granted, I'm only on like a normal setting. I haven't upped the difficulty to the max.
To the top
But-
climax.
Yeah, there you But when I sat down and gave it a go with the Pro Controller, it definitely does feel like the better way to play that game. But both work perfectly fine for me anyway. I don't know about you, Darren, if you've had the same sort of experience there.
No, well, I've quite adjusted quite well to the Joy-Cons, to be honest with you. I don't own a Pro Controller, but at first I missed it, when I started out playing the Switch, but I find it fine to play. I'd say it can play it on portable for too long, because you've got a lot of like the torture scenes, haven't you, where, I forgot what they're called. And you've got to spam the button as fast as you can, haven't you, to earn to
like
get the ring bonuses. Yeah, executions. So you've got to spam the button.
Yeah.
And so once you've been like laying off a load of combos and stuff, and then you find an especially when you're playing against some of the harder characters in there, you really need spamming that button when you're holding onto the Switch. Your hands just start to seize up a bit. But I've not had too much problem with it. It's been responsive and stuff, and I've kind of flown with it all right. I'm really enjoying it. I missed it. I didn't realise how much I missed it until I actually sat down to play it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I had to play Bayonetta 2 with the Wii U gamepad, and that was horrible.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Wii U had its own kind of Pro Controller as well, so I quickly switched to that. But the Wii U gamepad, going back to that now, it's just, I don't know. I tried playing Bayonetta 2 at the weekend, and it was just horrible. But, oh well.
Yeah. That Wii U gamepad was a bit of a pain. You got to keep it wide against the wall constantly, haven't you? Just.
Yeah, I bought the high capacity battery upgrade, where it was, from Nintendo, and that made the battery last a bit longer. But ergonomically, just holding it's very uncomfortable. I find now to hold, and even though the Switch is a lot thinner, the way you kind of grip it with the Joy-Con on both sides in handheld mode, I find that really comfortable to play.
Yeah, same there. Yeah.
And even going to 3DS, like I find the 3DS, I'm too used now. Now I'm too used to the fact that the Switch is a bit wider. So when I go and play 3DS now, it feels like I'm kind of like squashing my hands together. So I think the Switch probably is a really good setup in terms of the screen size versus the whole thing slid together into into the whole console. But I do typically play mostly with the Pro Controller now, unless I'm kind of in another room or something, or wandering around somewhere.
They are really comfortable. The Pro Controllers is really comfortable. The only time I got a chance to play one was when he was showing the Switch off in Manchester, and I was playing back. I got like 5 minutes of Zelda with it, but it felt really, really comfortable. I'll have to get one at some point.
Was that the magnificent Arndale Centre?
No, it was what's it called? No, it's called the G. It used to be called the GMEX, but it's called something else now. It's the big old train station with the clock on top. But I always know it as a GMEX.
Is that Trafford Centre?
No, it's in town. It's near the Central Library. Have you been to Manchester?
Oh, I went to Manchester for uni, so I was there for 4 years.
Oh, right. It's near the Central Library. You know, the big circular library?
Oh, yeah.
It's like facing that big building.
I don't think I ever went there.
No.
Well. Oh, well. One day I can live the dream.
Yeah.
And then, so anything else you've been playing? So obviously that's kind of Bayonetta chatted about, but any other games?
Sorry. I've been playing Dandara. I've been playing Dandara before Bayonetta. Dandara. Yeah, there's parts of that game that I really enjoyed. I thought I loved its style. I loved the main character of it. I thought the control system was really, really interesting. But where I think it kind of broke it for me was it relied too heavily on the Metroid system, because it's getting a bit overused now. I mean, it's alright taking the elements of the Metroidvania. So like SteamWorld Dig is a good example of. It's so highly praised at the moment, but essentially it's Metroidvania. I think Dandara relies quite heavily on it, but the main problem I found was the enemies, just the pattern of the enemies. Because let me start. Sorry. So Dandara, where the control system is unique is you can't just simply run and gun in it. So you angle your left stick, and you can attach yourself to set surfaces. So you're kind of bouncing along the rooms in Dandara as opposed to running from one door to the other. So it's kind of tailored for phones and stuff. It's on everything, but it's tailored for phones. I kind of preferred using a stick on it. But when it comes to fighting against enemies, some enemies it was fine because you got to kind of adjust your distance to attack them. But a lot of enemies, the way they kind of move on the screen, it's really difficult to coordinate that with your gunshot, with your projectile, because your projectile you have to charge it up. You can't just press the button and it fires at the enemy. So you can't just like spam a fire button. She has to charge the projectile up to actually throw it, and you can only do that when you're static. You can't do it while you're bouncing or moving. So when these enemies, you got like a screen full of bullets, and you got these enemies moving towards you, and you're limited by the space that you move. It kind of feels like luck that you're gonna get through it, and what drives it even more, kind of what didn't quite work out with it even more so was the Dark Souls element for it. So when you die, you kind of have a spirit of Dandara lay at your last place where you kind of fell. So you kind of got to go back to where your spirit is to recollect your salt, which is your currency. And most of the time, just trying to get back there, you'd end up dying anyway, or it'd be on the way back to somewhere else, because it's obviously the Metroidvania. You're going to be looking at different areas to find how to reach that door. So when you're kind of looking for a different route, you kind of you die on moving in towards a direction you don't necessarily want to go, if that makes sense.
Do you, in terms of the currency, what kind of things are you buying? Are they upgrades, or are they just kind of trivial things, or?
Well, your main projectile weapon, you don't actually upgrade. Not I noticed anyway. So you can upgrade your vitality, which you can like obviously make you live longer. You can upgrade. Has anyone here played Bloodborne?
Yes.
Right. So in Bloodborne, you have I can't remember what they're called, but you have like blood veils, and you like crush them to give yourself extra energy, don't you? So when you fight the boss, you're constantly crushing these blood veils to reach your vitality up. So you have a similar sort of element like that in this, and you can upgrade how much it fills it back up. So if it's very low and you find the blood veil, for example, I can't remember what they're called in Bandara, to be honest, but when you crush it, it'll only give you a little bit of vitality back. But if you collect it all, it will obviously fill the bar up, or fill most of the bar up. And you have one for your vitality, you have one for your secondary weapons. It's like rockets and like laser beams and stuff. But the one that you rely on most of all is your stock projectile that that fires off like magic arrows. That never seems to upgrade. It always takes the same amount to charge, and it never seems to extend in distance with its projectiles. And it kind of it just felt a bit unbalanced in that aspect. You want your main weapon to feel powerful by the end of it, and it just never quite reached that way. But I mean, I feel like I'm slating it a bit too much, because it is full of style. There's like really interesting characters in there. Like I say in the review, it reminded me of like the Labyrinth, and David Bowie's Labyrinth, and what's it called, the Never Ending Story. There's some really interesting characters in it. They don't really say much, but the design of them kind of drives you into this world that's very dreamlike, and what they call it directionless.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like style over substance, in that graphically it looks incredible, and there's a lot of thought into how the game presents itself to the player. But in terms of actually playing it, there's a few kinks there that probably needed ironing out.
Yeah, because it's so close, and it's great to see a Brazilian team getting into game development, especially with the character as well. The character is based on a 17th century like Afro. She's like a wife of an Afro Brazilian leader, and there's like uprisings of resistance against slavery, and unfortunately, something must have happened because it doesn't go. There isn't quite a lot known about her, But what it states is that she ended up committing suicide because she didn't want to go back into slavery. So it must have been a war that they fought, and it didn't quite work out to plan. And obviously, she took her own. She'd rather take her own life than get pushed into slavery. And even though it's very loosely based between this story of Dandara to this fits to the game, there's an element of repression and everyone's trapped and you're out to free them. You know what I mean? So it is, like I say, there's an atmosphere there that is special that will I'll always remember with me. I really enjoyed the game in that aspect. It's just on a technical level, they just tried to throw too many ingredients that's popular at the moment. So Dark Souls is popular, Metroidvanias are popular, and
I've kind of enjoyed though that because the Nintendo eShop obviously, as we all know, is very busy. There's a lot of games coming out, and whilst there's not many retail Nintendo Switch games coming out month by month, I do feel there's a lot of really unique experiences on the eShop at the moment. And Ryan, you've given out our second 10 of the year to Night in the Woods. Do you want to talk a bit about that, and then we'll dive into some news and stuff?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a very story-driven game. That's the main appeal of it. But walked into this not really knowing much about it. You play as a cat called May, who has dropped out from college and returned back to a hometown of Possum Springs. And then really it's just a case of adjusting back to your home life, reuniting with your old high school buddies, hanging out with your parents, things like that. And there is an overall arc that carries you through the game itself of the mystery of the town. There's something a little bit more sinister going on beneath the surface, but a large chunk of the actual game as well is getting to know your friends, getting to know your family, and discovering things about them gradually as you spend more time with them. And the review is live, which goes into a bit more detail about it. But part of the reason I fell in love with this game basically is that with video games, especially in video games, it tends to be a case of characters being very two-dimensional. There's not more to them other than this person is very angry, this person is always happy all the time. Whereas with movies in general, you do get more complex characters. And with Night in the Woods, this is one of those few games that I've played where I felt that the characters in them were believable. Like I actually felt like these could be, I mean, granted they are animals, but they felt very human. They felt like the kind of people that you might end up becoming friends with when you're in your 20s, or end up interacting with at some point. It's not a case of this person, Greg, for example, who's my favorite character in the game, and I ended up spending a majority of my time with him. He starts off, you just see him as this very excitable, very hyper, very funny character, but as you spend more time with him, you end up realizing there is a lot more complexity to his character than you initially think, and that applies to all the characters across the board. In terms of the gameplay, it is fairly standard what you'd expect from a game like that. You can explore the town. It's like a 2D side-scrolling type thing. A lot of it is very conversation heavy, so you will be talking with a lot of the residents. And there are a few mini games, but they are such a small part of it that even though they are fairly basic to actually play, there's such a small part of it is kind of irrelevant in a way. For example, you can practice with your band. You're in a band with your friends, and it's sort of almost like a rock band style button scrolling down the screen, and you have to press it in time with the actual music. But yeah, I mean, it's on the eShop now. It's one of those unique experiences that's quite unlike anything else on the Switch at the moment. And I mean, if you aren't into those types of games, you're sort of like Walking Dead from Telltale or things like that, where a lot of it is based on the characters and the relationships you form with them and the story itself. I don't think this is going to change your mind necessarily, because it is at times quite slow paced. But if you are into these types of games, then I recommend you go download this now. It's quite an experience.
Did you get emotional at any point?
Yeah, definitely.
Did tears fall down your face?
No tears. But it's the kind of thing where it can hit you hard, because a lot of the subjects that it does touch upon are very human. They are the sorts of things that people can and do go through throughout their life, and it did make me think back to my early 20s, around that time, and the groups of friends I would hang out with, and it does make you think. It is a game that does make you sit there and reflect. And by the time the game had hit the end credits, there's so much that has happened, so much to consider. I'm still thinking about it to this day. So yeah, I would say it is an emotional game.
I ugly cried at Coco in the cinema, so I'm a bit worried about playing it. I feel like I'm probably going to become an emotional wreck and just, I don't know.
Yeah, that nearly got me, Coco.
Yeah, it's a sad. It's a happy but sad film.
I thought it was quite, because it's a lot of it is about death, and I'm not that's a sort of a subject that tends to make me feel really sad. But yeah, exactly, and it's about there's a lot of like remembering and not forgetting and stuff like that. But everyone in the cinema when I went to see it just broke down. Basically.
Luckily I went on my own, so strangers saw me as an absolute wreck, but I was like, managed to just leave my dignity.
I had to brave it with the kids, especially with my son. There's no way I was going to sob in front of my son and near the end of it. I love the style of Night in the Woods, though. It looks beautiful, doesn't it?
Definitely. It's got a very atmospheric feel about it. Like the actual town itself, the overall sort of like tone of there is something more going on underneath the surface of this town carries through the visuals for sure. And it's one of its strongest selling points, definitely.
Cool beans. Oh, sorry, you're going to say something, Darren?
Oh no, I'm just going to say. I mean, because obviously, if you look at it, it's like a fuzzy felt. It's like fuzzy felt, simple art style, but sometimes that can it takes an art style like that to really drive an interesting game. You're not relying on high definition PS4 ultra realism. You know what I mean. You can take the simplicity of imagination and create something that leaves a lasting memory. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
I heard it's quite an intimate game as well, because obviously as an adventure game, it's something you're going to be playing solo rather than kind of buddying up with somebody. So I think it's quite good for Switch as well, the fact you can kind of play it in handheld and kind of cozy up and whack some headphones in and kind of play it through. But I just haven't found the time yet. I'm backlogged with things to do, so I'm hoping some point this week I can start it. But
I'd also say the actual dialogue in the game is amazing. It just is so well written. Like the conversations you have feel completely natural. Whereas you get video games that many times, I'm sure you two can attest for as well, where the actual writing in it, the script itself, seems quite cheesy or forced or whatever the case may be. Whereas with this, when you're hanging out with your friends in sort of like just whether it's down by the river or whatever, it feels like you said, it is very intimate. It feels like a very intimate experience. You really feel for these characters and what they're going through for sure.
Yeah,
sure. Great. Should we move on to news then? I guess if we've kind of chatted for a good long while about what we've been playing. First up, do you like playing your Nintendo Switch online, both of you?
Sometimes.
Yeah, when I'm winning.
Well, we've learnt at long last that the Nintendo Switch online service, which is the paid subscription model that's going to be introduced, that's launching in September. So we have a few more months of freedom before we have to stump up. I think the pricing was about £20 a year, so it's not as pricey as, say, Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. But it's certainly something we don't know enough about yet. So we still don't know really what's included beyond what they kind of roughly talked about, that you obviously need it to play online, that you get access to the Nintendo Switch Online app, which I haven't used in a very long time, You get your free classic game every month, which I think they said would have some kind of online functionality in there. So
is that still standing, where you just get one game and it's like a NES game?
I think it's a NES or a SNES game.
Right.
And I hope I've said that right, because I know some people say SNES and all that kind of stuff. I think you get one of those games per month, and I think you get to keep it. So it's not. I think when they initially announced it, it was that you got it, and then they'll take it away from you when after the month went by. It kind of changed. So it's more like having a book out from the library and then having to give it back and swap it for another book. But I think they changed it to the fact you would get one a month, and then you get to keep it. And also you'll get access to exclusive deals. So, if you're someone who does enjoy buying things on Nintendo eShop and buying digital games, and that would hopefully help you out on that side. But beyond that, I mean, there was a kind of a mini leak that happened on the Nintendo Italia website that kind of mentioned it wasn't going to be available until autumn 2018. So this was actually planned to release in 2017, and then Nintendo nudged it in 2018, and now it's happening at the kind of towards the end of the year. But if it's in September, I am kind of thinking along the lines that they're probably going to launch it alongside some kind of big online game.
Well, they have to, really, don't they? I mean, Mario Kart and Splatoon will have been out for over a year. Trying to think of what other online games they have released, like Pokken Tournament,
Arms.
Yeah, I mean, these games are old hat by then. I mean, some people will still be playing, obviously, but you need that big game, a new fresh game.
Let's not beat around the bush. It's going to be Smash Bros, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the few ideas I would have is that Smash Bros obviously is the one that I think a lot of people are waiting for and hoping is going to get announced at some point, and that will hopefully be that. I mean, September was around the time that the Nintendo 3DS version launched, and then I think the Wii one came out in November, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So it's around that kind of end of year time when that one really help drive sales into the holidays, and help bump up the already impressive numbers of not Wii U's. Wow, the impressive number of Nintendo Switch consoles that have been sold. But also, I think games like Animal Crossing. Again, obviously, we don't know that's it's obviously must be in development. We don't know when it's coming or anything like that, but it must be happening at some point, and that's obviously a game that.
But what about Animal Crossing? Like when I played Animal Crossing on the 3DS, never really did I use the online stuff that much. It was very much a case of, my town. This is my town. This is what I want to do. I feel like that's the kind of game that doesn't. I mean, unless the new Animal Crossing puts a big emphasis on online, which would be fantastic.
I think as with the DS, the online on the 3DS was something I didn't really use apart from just going on the eShop, downloading software updates and stuff like that. I never really played multiplayer very much, and obviously I think on Switch, there's a far higher focus on that. But also with Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo needs to be saying, look, this is why you're paying £20 a month, because you can do all this stuff. And all that.
Definitely. I mean, they've got the most to prove when you think about it, because you look at Xbox Live and you look at PSN, and yes, you're paying about double every year for it, but what you're getting is a pretty strong service. I mean, the online is, you've got a huge library of games that you can play online, third party and first party. You get the monthly selection of games free. Some of them are retail, a lot of them are smaller indie ones, and granted, each month is not always a winner, but
Knack. You got Knack this month on PS4. What more do you want?
Why is everyone asking for that so much? That game's is not even good. I don't understand that.
I was one of the sneaky people that went on the Australian PlayStation store and Knack 2 was free.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
I'm sorry, Sony. I'm sorry.
How is the game? As bad as the first?
I played a few hours of it, and it's not bad. There's just something that seems off with it. It seems a bit too clunky for its own good. But Knack 2 is more of a co-op game, more so than the first one. So right. I think it's probably best experienced as a kind of, parent, child, or friends or whatever kind of setup of actually sharing it with somebody else rather than just suffering alone. So maybe one day I can find someone that will actually sit through and play them. We should do a Knack live stream or something. I don't know.
Who gives up first?
Yeah,
last man standing.
Who survives? So I mean, certainly with the Switch Online, I certainly have enjoyed playing Splatoon. 2. You've obviously got things like Splatfest that have been continuing, and the non-Gherkins won this last weekend, so I was happy to see that. But it also had issues. There was like an emergency server maintenance that happened on Splatoon 2 that took it offline for an hour and a half. So obviously we had a Splatfest going on and no one could play. So
I know what a times for the maintenance.
I know it's rigged. They're denying the Gherkin lovers.
Well,
yep. Sorry, you're going to say something.
Sorry. No, I think Nintendo really do need to do something when it comes to online now, because especially when it's coming to being paid online now, because it's always been bare bones. It's like Ryan, you just saying about you never really took Animal Crossing online, but to be fair, they never made it easy for you to do.
No, that's right.
It seems like such a perfect game for friends to interact with, to visit each other's little towns and to pick apples and do a bit of fishing. But they never make things easy for you. Even Splatoon's not particularly easy to. I tried to get when Splatoon 2 first released. I got me, Jamie, and my other cousin to try and get in on a Splatfest, and it wouldn't let us go in as a team.
Yeah,
you can't really get in. Yeah, you can't really get into teams, and obviously you got to go to Discord to chat, and it seems to do everything the long way around. They really need to start kind of coming to the modern level of online gaming, I think.
Well, you just have to look at the app as an example of how Nintendo just don't get it. When Splatoon 2 came out and it was like, right, here's the app, you can chat with your friends through it. And I don't know if you guys used it at all, but it was terrible. I mean,
it's still terrible.
Yeah, I mean, because when it first came out, you had to have it open. You couldn't have it running in the background. If your phone went into standby, you'd lose the connection, which is just crazy.
Yeah, I just use Discord now because that's how I want things to be. That I can be in a room with people, and regardless of whether they're playing the same game as me or not, we can chat.
But that shouldn't be the case. That if they want to charge you money for this online service, it shouldn't be, this awkward experience where you're going out of your way to use another chat system, and that's what they need to make clear.
I do think that they are in a very more so than ever, they're in a listening mode. So they've put these things out. They know that people don't like the app. They know why people don't like the app, and I'd hate to be wrong, but by the time the service launches in September, I think that app's going to get overhauled, and it'll be far more what people want from it. You'll be able to see who's online. You'll be able to make a chat room and chat to everybody. I hope that's all in there. I'm optimistic about it, but certainly up until now, obviously, it's not the kind of thing you're looking at and going, "Yeah, I'll pay £20 a month for that." So I think I don't think it's going to happen at E3 because I think there's too much in that week that happens for them to kind of cut through with all the information about the online service. I think it will happen after E3 at some point. But certainly, I think they've said in an investor meeting this last week that it'll be worth the wait. They're working really hard on it. It'll be worth the wait.
But surely they're going to say they're not going to be like, well, we hope for the best. Fingers crossed you like it.
Yeah, but the worst thing would be that they launch this online service. Everybody thinks it's not very good. They're not happy with it, and they don't pay the subscription fee, and then no one plays online on Nintendo Switch anymore. So I do think they are taking their time with it to make sure it's right, and they don't want to rush into it. But I do worry that it's going to be coming about a year and a half after the console launched. And to suddenly expect everyone to suddenly stump up, £20 or pounds a year, or whatever it will be.
Yeah, it is a challenge. I think that's the biggest challenge for them to.
So it depends. I think what they might do though is, just have my final thoughts on it is that they will obviously be a point where you have to pay for it. But I think there might be a few months where they kind of say, right, this is what's going to happen with this, and this is what you're going to get with it. Here's a few months for you to kind of experience it, so you kind of get a feel for whether you like it or not. And after that, you have to pay for it. So you do kind of get that kind of. I know we're kind of in a way in a trial period right now of it. Everything's free anyway, but we don't really know what we will get with the online service apart from being able to play online. So I hope they kind of do that and let people at least try it out for a few months, and then from there. So maybe it could be at E3 that they kind of announce that we'll give you a few months to try it out, and then give us some money. But
it'll be interesting to see where Virtual Console fits in with all this online stuff.
I think they worry that obviously if they're giving a free game every month with online functionality and extras, that if they start doing that and then add on another version onto Virtual Console that's different, and then it's all confusing. It depends what these classic games are. I imagine they're going to be a lot of fighters and
Mario Kart might be there. That'll be
yeah.
that. I mean, that's cool, but I think they need to do a bit more than NES and SNES games
Yeah.
because
Temporary
those
as
are the
well,
games
aren't they?
we've seen the most on every console.
Sorry, what was that, Darren?
They're not. You don't get to keep them, do you? They're temporary for like 2 weeks. Or that's the initial plan for it. The temporary. Is it a month? It might be 2 weeks or a month. In that there's a month. You get a month virtual console game, NES or SNES game, and you get to play it a month with online functionalities, and then you get to choose to buy it at a discount. That's why I remember the news.
I think that was the original statement, and then since they've gone back on that, and now they're looking at, because I don't think the reaction to that was great. But I mean, hey, if you want people to notice and pay this money, I bet you if you throw GameCube games on there with online support, that's going to get people's attention for sure.
Yeah.
They have said there's going to be a hidden twist, though, haven't they? They said that it's going to be an online service with a twist, which they'll speak more about at a later time. So it could very well be like a Netflix scenario, or like say GameCube possibilities. In regards to the voice chat, I sort of understand why they use phones for it, because obviously it's a portable device as well, and with a 3 hour lifespan, if you're playing it online, which I'd imagine a lot of people will play it portably online just for that intimacy with headphones and the whatnot. I think voice chat might drain the battery a lot faster. That's why I think they've gone into the route of using mobile phones as a version of communication. It's just obviously they really need to sort out the Nintendo app because it's pants.
Yep.
Tell you what, just let me. I just realised, like, over the last few months, is that I've added friends on my Switch. Can't do anything with them other than, on the few games that do allow it, playing a match online. Like, you can't even message someone on there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that I have added because they're on my Wii U or 3DS or whatever, and I don't know who they are because their username they've chosen. I look at it and go, nope, who are you?
Yeah, it's strange because you got to go through all the rigmaroles of like sending codes and all the rest of it to each other. But you play against someone in Splatoon and they just send you a friend request because they're in their play history. My Switch gets bombarded with friend requests from people I've never met before, because if you go into a system settings, it shows you a history of people you've played with, especially through ARMS. I get a lot of people wanting to be friends with me through ARMS because they look through their history of who they played with, and you can just send a friend request off that button, and they're all strangers. I've no idea who they are. It's harder to be friends with friends than it is to be with strangers.
I had a friend request through from Rocket League the other day. Somebody played a Rocket League match with me and just added me, and I was like, don't know who you are. Decline. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. I think it's one of those wait for more details things, I think, until we can probably talk a bit more about it. Moving on to the next story, though. Mario Kart Tour will be the next mobile game that's going to release before March 2019. So any time between now and next March. So don't know much about it. It's the 5th game they've obviously released on mobile. That's all they said. It's gonna it's gonna come out in the next time, at some point in the next year, and that's the name. So, I mean, how do you want to play Mario Kart on a mobile though? That's probably the best question. Would you rather have some kind of gyro support, or would you prefer to have like a virtual buttons on there?
It'd have to be gyro support. You'd have to play that. I don't think any phone works well with virtual buttons, but it has got gyro support with it, and to tilt it, I think it will probably work better as a gyro support game. Just as long as you don't have to buy Guardian pieces to fuel it, then we should be okay.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things. Obviously, it came out of another kind of investor briefing of what's happening and what's up ahead. But one of those announcements that didn't really give us much information about it, which is a bit disappointing. You kind of hope for a little bit more, a screenshot or something. I don't know, some kind of general feel for what it's going to be. There is that Mario Kart VR game in Japan, which is like first person.
That was amazing. I've seen it. Yeah, it was great.
So I don't know whether it'd be something like that where you're just kind of steering your way through, and it's kind of like that. But obviously, Mario Kart is, as we've seen with Switch, a game that sold was one of the best sellers on Wii U has now become one of the best sellers on Switch. It's a popular franchise, so not surprised it's coming. But again, another wait and see, I guess, probably for that one. As another story, Super Mario is getting a movie. We'll have Charles Martinet wahooing his way through cinemas worldwide.
Will it though? That's the thing, or are they
gonna chop it?
Are they gonna just hire some famous Hollywood name like they did with Detective Pikachu? It's like they threw Ryan Reynolds in there.
Nah, I can't see them replacing Charles Martinet. The backlash.
Danny DeVito.
Jack Black.
I couldn't. And they've got, obviously Charles Martinet kind of records clips for each game as they come out, but they have such a library of audio files for him saying things that.
So do you reckon that they won't do like fully voice? It'll be like everyone else can talk, but then Mario will say like "whoa," and that's about it.
Yeah,
or "Mamma Mia" when something goes wrong.
Yeah, so this is like just kind of talk a bit more about it. Illumination, who have made Minions, Despicable Me, Sing. I don't know if you've seen Sing. I haven't. Those kind of films. Nintendo basically teamed up with them to Shigeru Miyamoto, the father of Mario, will co-produce the movie with them. But what was I going to say?
I think Idris Elba should do the voice. That'd be great. He'd be the perfect. It's great at everything, Idris Elba, and he'd be a great Mario. He better pull Mario off.
But they've got
Kevin Hart.
Oh God.
He can get his voice quite high, can't he? So
is it Italian enough? Yeah. That's the problem.
True.
Shigeru Miyamoto has worked on the Pikmin shorts, and they were pretty good.
Yeah.
But they only released those on 3DS and Wii U, and it was like, okay. I think one of my bigger complaints with Nintendo is they don't really seem to like to push their stuff onto Amazon, video or something, or iTunes stuff. Even soundtracks. There's so much money they're missing because people just listen to stuff on YouTube now rather than. I don't know, baffling. But I don't know. This kind of news was met with part excitement of the fact there's going to be a Nintendo movie again after the flop that was Super Mario Bros. But again, it's one of those things where they kind of announced it, but it's still obviously very early stages, so there's nothing to show for it yet. So there's no way of knowing what it's going to be like, or if it looks bad yet, or should we be worried or happy or whatever.
Well, I don't know. If we look at the track record for video game to movie adaptations, it's a pretty strong lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, have you seen Doom? Doom was a great film. Had The Rock in it.
With The Rock, yeah. With the first person bit where he's running around. Carl Urban, I think his name is, shooting stuff in the first person.
And I think I saw.
The best part in the film is.
Or there's a bit in Doom where it goes first person, isn't there? And then
that's the bit. He injects himself with something and goes like into overdrive basically and starts mowing down demons.
But the Assassin's Creed film was partly good but partly bad. It was like 50-50. Like I think the modern, if I remember correctly, the modern stuff wasn't great, but the historic stuff seemed okay.
That sounds just like the games then. So keep on track with the video games.
What else? I saw Prince of Persia. That was alright. Wasn't too bad.
Oh, I've never seen Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Resident Evil. The first Resident Evil wasn't bad, but then the other 25 of them were terrible.
So for Christmas, I haven't seen the last Resident Evil film, and so I asked for Christmas to get the whole like Blu-ray box set with like all the films in. So I was like,
why would you do such a thing to yourself?
Why? I kind of thought rather than just for the price of the whole collection, rather than just get the last one, it was more like cost effective just to buy the box set because if you ever felt like watching one of them or whatever.
Do you know what's more cost effective?
Not buying them.
Bought none of them.
But the last one I watched like half an hour, 45 minutes, and I was like, this is awful, and turned it off. So I haven't even watched it through yet. But it's.
I remember. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say the best video game movie adaptation that's been out ever has got to be Mortal Kombat. I don't think it's ever been beat.
I quite like Street Fighter though. I forget the actor who played M. Bison, but he was the best part.
Oh yeah, he had the best part. Yeah, it's an awful film though. I, at the same time, when I was like really depressed after watching that, 'cause I'm a massive Street Fighter fan, I never knew until someone brought it into school one day. It was the Street Fighter animated movie, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
And that's where this could go, right? Because has anyone seen a Street Fighter animated movie? Yeah?
No.
The old manga.
I think I have it, but it's somewhere. I haven't watched it
Well,
though.
in the mid-90s, they made a Street Fighter animated movie based on Super Street Fighter 2, and it came out around about the similar time as the live-action film. And the anime itself is so, like, perfect to the game that it's incredible. There's been a few since then, and they've never been quite as good, but that certain one was brilliant, which comes to think that, like we're discussing game adaptations to films, most of them are live action, and I think now we got so far into technology and creating a really good animated movie, I think it could work quite well. I think doing a full-on 3D animated film of what Illuminati can do, and same like Pixar and DreamWorks, it could pull off. Obviously, the biggest question is to see how if Mario's going to have a personality, because you could probably only handle that voice for so long, couldn't you, before you want to strangle him. So it'd be interesting to see, how they deal with it. But it could definitely work. The Lorax was good. The Lorax was a good film. I've yet to see Sing. And the first Despicable Me. I mean, I know I hate Minions. I can't stand them. They're everywhere. They do me head in. But the first Despicable Me film, when it was fresh and new, was a genuinely funny film. So they've got it in them. It's just I mean, personally, I'd have preferred DreamWorks to do it. But what's it called? Obviously, they've got a dealership with Universal Studios. It's really interesting seeing Nintendo starting to really have the confidence to push the brand more and more out there, because it seems to have clam up when Bob Hoskins played Mario, didn't they?
Yeah,
But now you got Ubisoft. Sorry, you got Ubisoft handling the Mario versus Rabbids. You just saw that coming, and now they're pushing it in for more to Universal Studios, cinema. You never know. I might actually get that Zelda spin-off on Netflix. It's unlikely, but
maybe. So just to kind of rattle through some more news, some of the smaller ones. We've got Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, which is obviously released on PlayStation 4 last year and did very well for Activision. That's kind of appeared in a magazine. Some licensing guy was kind of saying that this year it was going to release on Nintendo Switch and PC, and that there's going to be another game next year as well, which was then swiftly removed from the magazine after everyone started picking it up. So, I mean, Activision's been one publisher that's not been quite as supportive on Switch as much as I thought they would so far. We got Skylanders, which I personally quite enjoy Skylanders, but I'm not the type of person that's going to go out and buy 20 million toys unless they're amiibo. Yeah, so it's good to kind of see them supporting things. And obviously, there's rumor of Call of Duty coming to Switch this year, but whether it's the same game as other consoles or some kind of like spin-off or something, I don't know. So there's that. There's also at the weekend there were a few press conferences. So NISA or NIS America, they held one, and they announced a fair few games. So I'm just going to quickly run through these. So there's happy birthdays. Happy birthday to you, by the way, Ryan.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Few days late, but So yeah, so that's coming out. It's like a sandbox game where you can basically, it's like kind of voxel style like Dragon Quest Builders and Minecraft, and yeah, you can kind of basically build a world and then you kind of play around with it to kind of help life brew, I guess, in some way, where you kind of change the temperature and stuff. I don't know. It's a bit weird in terms of how they explained it, but you encourage life to flourish. And then kind of you get like dinosaurs and stuff. So I mean, it looks quite cute, but I'm not sure about it until I play it a bit more, because it looks a bit confusing, even for like, it's a bit cutesy, even for kids. I think it's a bit confusing, but oh well. SNK.
It reminds me of sorry.
That's all right.
Hello? Oh, I thought it went dead then. It reminds me a bit of Doshin the Giant. What I've seen of it.
Oh yeah.
Anyone played Doshin the Giant on the 64? That just the way they move. You can little villagers start worshipping like the god and stuff. You can move the islands up and down. Just Kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of God Sim type thing going on. But
Yeah.
that's I missed. I can't remember when it's coming out. I've moved on. Unfortunately, I've closed the tab. Damn it. That's coming out in 2018 anyway, so I think it's slightly later, maybe summer. The next
Yeah, I
one
think
was
it's summer.
SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzy. Has 3 different costume options, so that's that. Not particularly big news in any way, but they're all unlockable through the game, so it's not like DLC. So at least
Are they
there's.
are they all fairly revealing? I take it.
Some of them
They're a
are
mixture of both, aren't they? So you got classic costumes and you got sexy photo shoot costumes.
like bikinis and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
Of course.
bikinis and cat ears.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's a strange looking game. That because I was discussing before, the GameSpot has released 4 minutes of the actual gameplay footage of it. I mean, I saw a bit when Evo they announced the trailer around Evo Japan, and I saw a little off-camera footage of the gameplay on it, and it was really blurry. Couldn't really make out what was going on. But I've GameSpot has recently put 4 minutes of a few matches on, and it looks quite different to the conventional fighter. By the way, like meter management and vitality works on there. So we already know that when you can't just necessarily get KO'd through it's the standard way, like you would in Street Fighter. When your bar reaches 0, you get knocked out. In this, you've got to finish him with a special move. So what I've seen on the video is you've got like a green vitality bar and a glittery pink meter. So when you start losing vitality, getting hit, your glittery meter looks like it builds up while your vitality shrinks, but the glittery meter looks like your super meter. It looks like it gives you more options to drive out, like a comeback mechanic, I think, for the person who's losing, while the person who's winning has to kind of control how much meter they've got, because their meter is going to be much smaller to try and get that final blow. So it'll be interesting to see how it actually all kind of gels together, because it looks a bit party game, party fight, so and there could be a serious element in there, but we'll have to see how it
yeah,
goes.
I'm not sure if it's kind of like Evo material. Like I thought.
No, it doesn't
So
really look like it at the moment, does it?
yeah, that one's out in the summer, so we'll await more on that. There's what looks to me a bit like a mobile game called Toho Genso Wanderer, which is like a roguelike game. There was a kind of another Toho game on Switch which wasn't very good. I had to review that one. That was awful. So I mean, this one looks a bit more promising in terms of what it's trying to be. But yeah, it's kind of a roguelike, exploring dungeons and all that kind of stuff. And that one's out this year. So that's through there. Ease 8, Black Mercer of Dana, has exclusive content on Switch, apparently. But drilling through it, though, it looks like because it was on PlayStation 4 and Vita, and I kind of hunted through the PlayStation Store, and the content looked to be kind of different between Vita and PS4. So I think what they've done is basically grouped everything together, and then it's like Switch is definitive in that sense. So that's that one. Fallen Legion: Rise to Glory, which is kind of like a compilation of, again, 2 games that kind of released across PlayStation 4 and Vita again, I think, which are Fallen Legion: Sins of an Empire and Fallen Legion: Flames of Rebellion. They've kind of been bundled into one package for Switch. That's coming out in the end of May in North America and the 1st of June in Europe. So that's not too far away. That's kind of like a side-scrolling, kind of like a beat 'em up, I think. I haven't played the other ones, but yeah, so that's that one as well. Rattling through these quite quickly, and the surprise at the end of the NISA event was Labyrinth of Refrain, Coven of Dusk. They kind of did that kind of thing of like, oh, that's it, everybody, and then ta-da, here's another one. So for their kind of surprise announcement. A lot of my friends were quite excited for this, so I'm interested to kind of check that one out. You basically become a book called the Tractatus Demonstrum. So yeah, and with that you kind of then can command puppet soldiers and then kind of hunt through the labyrinth. the idea is that you go into the labyrinth, grab some like treasure or whatever, then you have to make your way safely out of the labyrinth. But on your way back out of the labyrinth, it's more difficult. There's more monsters that come out to try and stop you. So I don't know. It's kind of fun. That one through there. And then there was Penny Punching Princess, which previously had a release date. I think it was about the 20th of March in Europe, but that's been kind of pushed back to the 30th of March. So it's kind of suffered a 2-week delay in both North America and Europe. So nothing too dramatic. That was a game where basically you can bribe enemies to fight for you, and kind of things like that. But it looks so kind of a bit of a silly game, but certainly silly in a fun way rather than a bad way. And again, just kind of rattling through other announcements for games. Tiny Build had their own kind of stream, which I think was like #HelloSwitch. They announced 6 games coming to Nintendo Switch over the coming months. The first one was a game called The Final Station. Basically, it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic world again, which obviously we see in many games these days. But you're on this train, and basically you go through from station to station, and you can choose to either shoot survivors and just loot them and take everything they have, or you can rescue them, and then they kind of join on the train as you kind of head to your final destination. So yeah, it looks kind of a bit different, a bit quirky compared to most. Certainly I haven't played any other train games on Switch yet, so but it's a side scroller though. I shouldn't kind of make it sound like it's some kind of train sim. So that's that one. That's out in February. Then there's Cluster Truck. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one. It's out in March. You basically leap across. You're on a highway with loads of trucks. You have to kind of jump from truck to truck to kind of reach the end or something like that. So that one got quite a good reaction when it was announced. So something obviously other people have played that I haven't. So that one's there.
Are they?
It's big fun. The YouTube scene, I think, Cluster Truck.
Yeah, I think.
Well, I've just googled it, and about 10 different like YouTubers with funny different hair and loads of views.
Yeah,
have popped up. So yeah.
Are they adding anything to these Switch versions, or is it?
I think they're just straight ports, as far as I know.
Okay. I'm thinking that Cluster Truck would be pretty cool if you. I don't know if they've added it since I last saw that game on PC. Sort of like a 2-player race mode or something like that would be pretty cool with the 2 Joy-Con.
I don't think there's anything new. As far as me watching it, and the stream kind of hit a few snags as it started, but eventually they got it right. Everything they kind of announced to do with it was just the same kind of content that was in there before, so there's no kind of extras. So unfortunately, nothing new for you, but more the merrier though on Switch. More the merrier. There's also a game called Punch Club, which I think came out on Nintendo 3DS before. Where basically it's described as a choose-your-own-adventure boxing management tycoon game, which is a mouthful. But basically, you witness your dad being murdered, and then you basically go into this punch club to kind of rise through the ranks to kind of work out who was the person that murdered your father, and then exact your revenge and all that kind of stuff. So it looks quite cool. It's that kind of like pixel art style thing I would see on. It's probably a bit too advanced for a SNES maybe, but it's certainly that kind of style.
Yeah, check it out.
So that's there. That one's out in May. So, and it also comes with the downloadable content. So I think the route that Tiny Build took was that any downloadable content for the game is kind of bundled with it. So that's that. There's also a game called Party Hard, which is a dark comedy stealth strategy game. You're basically someone who gets annoyed at being woken up by your neighbours having parties all the time, which obviously is something I think a lot of people deal with in their lives. And then you basically go to the party and just go around murdering people.
Okay.
So rather than calling the police and being like, "Hey, noise disturbance, go and shut that party down," this is kind of you go around and just murder them. And the whole idea of the game is that you have to kind of discreetly murder people.
What?
So it's not like you can't just go into the party. You don't just go into the party and just gun everybody down. You're having to
No, of course not. That would be crazy.
You have to blend in. Hey, let's go in the jacuzzi. Stab. That kind of thing. So I mean, topically, I was a bit kind of like raised eyebrows because obviously there's a lot of fatal shootings and things happening in America, well, year on year really, but certainly in kind of crowded settings like this, I was a bit kind of like, okay, but obviously it's a video game, and yeah, but yes, that's that. Murder Party Guests, fun. That one's out in summer, so that one's not too far off, but that's that. There's also a game called Streets of Rogue, which is obviously a play on Streets of Rage, and it's a roguelike, surprise. So there's that one as well. It's described as a blend between a game called Nuclear Throne, which I think I got on Xbox One as a free game and I haven't played it or something. Deus Ex and Grand Theft Auto. It's kind of anarchy, mayhem, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of you run around beating people up and doing whatever you want. So fun times.
Well, that's always fun.
Yeah, that one's out this year. And then the last announcement from that Tiny Build stream was Hello Neighbor, which is a game that's very popular with YouTubers, which is about you moving into a neighborhood, and then you kind of spot that your neighbor's kind of behaving a bit suspiciously. So you kind of creep into their house, and then you're trying to work out what's in their basement. So it's a kind of stealth horror game.
Yeah, a friend of mine showed me this in work. It does look quite tense.
Yeah,
it looks pretty. Yeah, I'm surprised. Actually, I read about that before. Actually, I'm not surprised that's making it to the Switch.
Yeah, the smart thing about this game that has made me more interested in it is that the kind of AI of the kind of this shady neighbor that you have is procedural, so it kind of learns from what you're doing. So if you keep going in through the front door, they'll like board up the front door so that you can't keep using that route. If you keep jumping through the window, they'll put like a trap next to the window and stuff like that. And it's quite clever how it kind of reacts to what you're doing. I don't know how easy it is to complete. I've only ever kind of seen short clips of people kind of screaming at the fact that they just turn a corner and the neighbour's there and chases them down. But that one's coming out. But it's also going to be a retail game as well. So it's not, the rest of them are all kind of eShop games to download, but Hello Neighbour's going to come out a retail as well. So that also means it's priced at $40. So that's going to be about £30 probably for us. So I worry that the price point might nudge it out of. Obviously, it's a game that a lot of people are interested in, but I worry that sometimes the desire to have like a retail and an eShop release nudges up the eShop price to match it, because I think that's some kind of rule that's in place, and therefore I worry that people might not, sales-wise, it might not do as well as they want it to. But it's certainly, out of all the 6 games, probably the one that I'm most interested in, and that's there. And the last story for us to kind of wrap up the rest of the podcast with is probably the most intriguing one, in that there was a LinkedIn profile for, I probably shouldn't name him, but he hasn't changed his profile since everyone picked it up. Sean Pittman, who's a lead designer at Bandai Namco Studios Singapore. On his profile, he listed that he was working on Ridge Racer 8 as a Nintendo Switch exclusive, and an unannounced IP that he described as a first-person shooter adventure game. So since that, Eurogamer came out with a report that kind of, they check with their sources that they have, and those sources confirmed that Bandai Namco Studios Singapore was working on Metroid Prime 4. And then since they published that report, though, I think it's changed. So I think the lead development is Bandai Namco Studios Japan, and Singapore's kind of like assisting on the project. So there's that.
They're taking on another, wasn't it? They were taking on another Switch project, which I think people are starting to think would be Ridge Racer 8.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which is interesting. I mean, Ridge Racer is one of those weird franchises that has actually had a lot of exclusive games on different consoles.
Yeah.
In terms of a Nintendo console, the 3DS had one at launch, didn't it? I think Ridge Racer 3D.
Yeah, I played there was one on Xbox 360, and I absolutely hated that one, because if you go around like a corner and you could like literally, if you were turning like left around a sharp corner, you could like skid your car right and then go around the corner and like completely like in a direction that like would not happen in real life. And so I kind of just thought, like,
so
what?
Good.
But I was like, this is
that's
just
what
crazy.
Makes it so good.
But then I really like the 3DS one. So I know the last one.
Oh yeah, I forgot there was a 3DS one.
There was Ridge Racer.
The PSP one was good as well.
There was Ridge Racer Unbounded.
Unbounded looked good.
Yeah, I think
Unbounded was a very different game. That was I think
Yeah.
that was Bugbear, wasn't it? The Flat Out
was that
guys.
trying to be like
Oh, is that what you
Burnout
made?
though?
It was right. Pardon?
Well, I think the Unbounded game was trying to be a bit like Burnout though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
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 because
it
the
was. It was
handling was
trying to be
totally
burnout.
different. Like you couldn't do those insane drifts around corners. It was you actually had to use your brake properly and stuff like that, and it was very city focused.
Yeah.
It was a cool game. I thought it was alright, but then it wasn't. It wasn't that classic Ridge Racer style.
It's certainly a genre that Nintendo doesn't cater for. Like, you've got PlayStation that has Gran Turismo, you have Xbox One, which has Forza Horizon 3, which for me is probably the most fun racer I'm playing on any kind of console at the moment. Obviously, I love Mario Kart, but it's Mario Kart is all like items and not particularly not a realistic kind of
It
racer.
does look a beautiful game. Forza
Yeah.
Horizon it looks really nice.
So I in terms of the three platforms or platform holders, I think Nintendo is the one who has a gap there. And so the Ridge Racer 8 part didn't surprise me because I was like, yeah, actually, I can, yeah.
I suppose it is
It makes
Nintendo's
sense.
turn, isn't it? If Microsoft had one, Sony had one, now Nintendo are getting one.
Yeah.
But I'd say all three of the platform holders there's a gap because it's one of those genres or subgenres that's really not as not as like there's not as many games coming out now as there used to be with like arcade races. I mean, you mentioned Forza and Gran Turismo, but those aren't. I wouldn't say those are arcade races like your Burnouts or.
Yeah.
We need another Burnout. We definitely need another Burnout.
Well, they're re-releasing Burnout Paradise though, aren't they? I don't know if they ever actually announced it themselves, but it's only leaked.
I think they've. Yeah, they've not. I don't think they've actually announced it, but it has been on the rumor mill.
Yeah, I think.
It's perfect for it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's perfect for it.
EA have gone and killed Need for Speed now, haven't they? Really? I suppose they need to go back to Burnout.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, EA kills all good developers. They bought out Criterion, didn't they? They just buy him then dump him. It's
a shame. I mean, I think the problem, the general problem to me is that, again, something that people don't really talk about is that Nintendo with Wii, Wii U, and Switch, I guess, as well in some ways, it's catering more for how do you say it, kind of middle ground projects that aren't these kind of big AAA like mega realistic graphics, all that kind of stuff. Because the project, in terms of the project scale and the expense, this is pushing studio closures and things in the UK, in America, regardless of the publisher. The budgets for games are getting so big, and I think in terms of Nintendo approaching things like the console approach they have, they don't want to chase after these like keep going for like 4K graphics and stuff like that, because they know that if we do that, we can't release as many games, but also it's going to take us it's going to take us longer to create games, it's going to make them more expensive to make, and it's more of a risk because if the game doesn't sell very well, they're not going to make the money back, and then they'll.
I totally agree on that. Sorry.
So yes, I mean the big thing for me with Nintendo is like I like the fact they're kind of this middle ground where it's like, you know what, if you have a smaller cool indie game that you want to release, we're here. Bring it out on the Nintendo shop. But also, I mean, games like even as a third party game, I thought Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle looked great. Like, it's not this big technical tour de force of other platforms, but that game looked brilliant. I think Zelda art style was great, but I think because it was that kind of cross-platform project of Wii U and Switch, they probably could have done a bit more with it, but they wanted to kind of have parity. Obviously, Mario Odyssey looked great. So I'm kind of hopeful that with Switch we'll get a lot of really cool games. It's just I think my big worry though is that when PS5 comes out, which I presume will be 2019 maybe, that there might be then another kind of shift where Nintendo have to kind of step up again to kind of make sure they're still in the same ballpark to get more games. But
I don't think that'll be as big of an issue as it sounds. I think when the PS5 comes out, I think that's when developing games become really dangerous. I think what's so attractive about the Switch is like what you've just saying in regards to to develop a good looking game for the Switch, which is Xbox 360, PS3 sort of era. Now, there's games on in that generation that still look really good, that stand the test of time. Mario 3D World, for example, still looks gorgeous. Now, the plastic on Mario Odyssey will never look old, on the mini games. It looks gorgeous. But they are much cheaper games to make, and you can still. I mean, Breath of the Wild is an excellent example of that. You can still make an epic game that has a huge scope and things, and it doesn't have to break the bank. As soon as there's going to be times where a developer is going to make something that looks absolutely incredible, and it's going to tank, and it's just going to wipe the development out because it's going to just cost more and more and more to make games. And if Nintendo keep picking up the steam like they are, I think what we call last generation graphics is going to come back in a big way, because like Nintendo especially know how to play with graphics that look timeless. Wind Waker, for example, still looks beautiful now.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, as well. I mean, there's a lot of Wii games that are making a comeback on Switch, like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. I don't know, Hyrule Warriors. Obviously, Bayonetta's coming back. I mean, Bayonetta seems to have got like a small kind of technical performance upgrade on Switch, and the color palette looks slightly different. But those games are still incredible. Like, and Bayonetta 3 obviously is coming down the line. So they're kind of obviously filling out the schedule with, kind of game a month to kind of, show the commitments there. But obviously they couldn't expect people, if they released like 2 or 3 games a month, everybody would be bankrupt by the time it got to the end of the year and won't be able to buy anything else. So the steady pace, I think, is good for them, but it's just courting the third parties. And we've seen, obviously, with Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, that working with an external developer, obviously Ubisoft quite closely, still produced a really amazing game that surprised everybody. I think that's the best-selling third-party game on Switch. And it might be because it has Mario in it, all that kind of stuff, but it's still a great game. And so obviously with this rumour now about, obviously, Ridge Racer 8, that's obviously kind of Bandai Namco property, but having them involved with Metroid Prime 4, I mean, Bandai Namco worked with them on other games. It's not like this is the first time they've ever worked together. They worked together on Smash Bros.
Oh, of course,
so it's that's one of their biggest franchises. And if they trust them enough to work with that, I'm not worried at all about Metroid Prime 4.
We think that the first Metroid Prime was given to a relatively unknown studio who had yet to prove themselves, Retro, and then look how that turned out.
That's the bigger mystery, isn't it, Ryan? What is Retro Studios working on? So, I mean,
Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong 3.
Donkey Kong.
I'm sure that
complete that trilogy.
Well, I think they must have. I don't know if I'm not aware of the whole scale of Retro, but they must have, say, 1 or 2 teams, or one team that might start prototyping a game, and the other one then kind of goes into full production or something. So they must have been like working on something that must be either nearly finished or has been finished and is now ready to release. I hope this year. Who knows? And then obviously working on the next thing. So I don't mind if there's another Donkey Kong coming, but I just feel like there's been
tropical heat.
Yeah, well, global warming edition. But I really think that I'm worried about the payoff of that, the fact that they've been so quiet for so long about what they're working on, and that it sounds like it's kind of like a project that was on Wii U that then got shifted. Which is fine, but I worry that the quietness has pushed up anticipation for it to be something really special. So if they come out and it's something that's like not anywhere near what people are expecting in a bad way, it could actually impact them in that. So
I think you'd like to think that would not be the case. I mean, everyone's as great as Tropical Freeze was. I think after that initial reveal, people couldn't get over the fact that it was another 2D platformer on a system that, let's face it, was swimming in 2D platformers at the time.
Yeah.
And for a big studio well, not big in size, but sort of like a talented studio like Retro, I should say, who had taken a 2D franchise, Metroid, and turned it into this 3D epic adventure. It's like you expect more from them than a 2D platformer. And I think it's the same with the Switch. Like you said, the build-up, we've heard absolutely nothing. Their Twitter account, all they do is post out pictures of meat on Twitter, and that's about it. Which people were like, oh, they're making an Earthbound game. They're making connections through pictures of meat to Earthbound, and it just people get their hype so high because they've not heard anything, so they're trying to imagine what it could be that's being kept secret so long.
Yeah,
and
it's only one. It's only the one thing they have to if nothing else this year, they have to just announce what that is and just let it out into the
Yeah.
open. Because as well for the studio, because the leak culture that there is at the moment, people are desperate to find something out and go, "Hey, I found this out, and this is what it is." And it happened with the Rabbids game. There was a lot of leaks before the Rabbids game got revealed that were very negative. And Ubisoft Milan have talked about how that knocked their confidence. They're like, "Oh, are we making a good game? Is this something people want?" And then when it got revealed at E3, I mean, when Miyamoto came out and everything, it was like the whole moment was just like, "This is amazing," and the game looks incredible. And then it came out and it reviewed very well. It's sold very well as well. So I hope that they'll get a chance to work on a sequel or something, or some other idea they may have about another Nintendo property. But I'm certainly encouraged that Nintendo is prepared to work with other developers, even if it is under kind of close supervision, to kind of make sure it's still within what they want and that there's no issues with it. Because I think it's going to help them pad out the library, but also build a good relationship with third parties that, as we're all aware of, 3DS and Wii U was pretty much non-existent. So we'll just have to see what happens. And that's that. It's probably a good time to wrap up wonderful episode 3. If you've listened all the way through up until now, thank you very much for listening to us wonderfully chatting through everything. Like, subscribe, and comment, all that kind of wonderful YouTube stuff. If you're on iTunes as well, feel free to let us know your thoughts, anything we can improve, anything you want us to chat about as well, any questions, that would be good. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Alex, for having me again.
It's all right.
Thank you. For the third time.
And thank you, Darren, for your debut episode appearance.
Cheers, thanks a lot, Alex.
And until next time, we'll catch you then. Bye for now.
See ya.
Bye-bye.